Welcome to a show about a show podcast,
where we take an in-depth look at some of our favorite TV shows.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Joe.
Let's get into it.
Spin that shit.
Y'all feel that energy?
It's the intro.
Yeah, we got an intro now.
So I want to get right into the thick of it, and I want to ask you, Jake, about your Jack Black obsession, and I want to know, when did it start? Is there anything sexual about it? And just why Jack Black? I mean, I understand he's a very influential man.
Yes.
But just give me all the details.
Okay,
I want the dirt.
If you want the dirty details, you sick pervert, we can just get right into it then. I think I was maybe 7 years old, whenever Nacho Libre came out. I remember watching that movie, and Jack Black with that delicious mustache and those sweet tights.
Oh, his nacho
everything.
Was out.
Yeah,
you could see his nacho.
His package was delivered, and the delivery address was my door. So, you could say it was potentially maybe a sexual awakening. I mean, look at Jack Black. Like, he's a god. He was a hero of the mid to late 2000s.
He is fat and physical.
I mean, he's fat and physical, very similar to Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Look, you don't get a lot of guys in the industry
He's unique.
That fill both of these categories.
I mean, he really is good at physical comedy, though.
I mean, the kick is insane. Like, he can
we'll
kick.
get to that kick later in this episode.
He can kick.
He can kick like a motherfucker.
Now, Jake, if I'm being completely honest with you, I'd have to inform you that I went through a bit of a Jack Black obsession myself.
What?
It wasn't so much Jack Black. It was more so the School of Rock.
Well, it was partially due to Jack Black.
It was very much so. Do I have all of the songs from that movie memorized?
Yes, you do.
So, I mean, yeah, it's partially Jack Black.
So, what happened?
So, basically, like, remember when DVR was a thing?
Yeah, I do. That was a great time.
Yeah, wonderful. So, you know, you also get those free trials from HBO.
Oh, yeah.
So you have like a few.
You gotta record everything.
Yeah, you have to record everything. So one of the first things I recorded was School of Rock, and I missed the first 20 minutes of it. So it just starts off when Jack Black is like in a bathroom peeing, and then he hears the kids playing music, and that's pretty much when the movie starts. So you don't miss that much, but the intro is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, I literally would fall asleep watching this movie like every night.
That's
in
ridiculous.
The 7th grade. It was really weird. I remember my dad telling me something about it. He's like, I was like, I hear that movie every single night, and you get to like the same part, and then you fall asleep, and it's just playing. Like, why do you do that? Why would you watch the same thing over and over? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Dad, that's
you don't
what
get
I
me.
to do. Yeah.
He definitely probably thought you had a weird Jack Black obsession.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it was just like kids playing music.
It's the fantasy, you know? Being in a rock band, who doesn't want to be?
For sure. So let's go ahead and get into this episode. So today we are covering episode 13 of season 1, Investigative Journalism. This episode aired January 14th, 2010. So a little bit of time has passed since we did the pilot, or not since we did the pilot, but since the pilot came out.
The mid-season episode, really.
Yeah. So we have a lot of guest appearances on this episode. But first, let's cover. It was written by John Polak and Tim Hobart, the writing duo. They wrote this episode, and then it was directed by Joe Russo.
Yeah, Joe Russo.
Not Jew Russo.
Yeah.
So the guest appearances, like I said, there's a few. So we have Jack Black as Buddy, who is just this kind of like weird, like, dude from Spanish class.
Yeah.
You know, who was there. You just never noticed him. We also have Jim Rash as Dean Pelton, which is crazy that even at this point, Jim Rash was still a guest
halfway
character.
through the first season, he's still a guest.
He's a great character, definitely. Like,
yeah, I mean, he becomes a main character.
Yeah, really. He becomes a really big character. And then finally, we have Owen Wilson as the
god.
Other study group leader. So we're going to meet another study group towards the end of this episode. And this is also returning after the group's Christmas break. So, you know, things have changed, as we'll see. And I have written down that around 5.42 million people watched this episode.
Solid.
So still retaining a very solid amount of watchers. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and give us a synopsis, Jake?
All right, so The group returns from their winter break and realizes a new student named Buddy, who's played by Jack Black, has inserted himself into the group. They must decide whether or not to allow him to stay. Meanwhile, Dean Pelton makes Jeff the new editor of the Greendale Gazette-Journal, where Annie discovers a story about racial profiling in the school. So that's the synopsis. The first scene, we open with the group seeing each other for the first time after winter break. They all talk about how they spent their time. And Britta, my favorite part is when Britta is asked, like, where was she? Like, what was she doing after going on her rant about how the young waste their time?
She says that after Troy and Abed explained that they spent the winter break playing a video game that sounds as boring as real life, but it is not. And that's kind of that's getting more towards, like, my favorite part of Troy is when he gets to, like, I'm kind of this, but, like, not. Like, that's my favorite shit. Mm-hmm. So I think this is getting closer to it. But she says, like, vacations are wasted on the young. Yeah. And she goes off on this rant, and, like, what do you have what she says?
Yeah, I don't have exactly what she says, but I know, like, I have after she's asked, like, where she went, she says, Amsterdam, I think. I'll know more when I find my camera.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what she says. So I was thinking, like, man, must have been a crazy vacation.
Yeah, or I have a feeling she did not actually go to Amsterdam.
She might not have.
Or was just at a bar in
a bar called Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And then after this, Pierce walks in, and he's wearing this fantastic T-shirt that says "World's Greatest Grandpa." And he actually says, "Guess what happened to me?" And Annie asks if he's become a grandpa. She's really, like, interested. She's like, "Oh my gosh, like, Pierce." Come to find out, no. I've become even cooler. These ironic T-shirts are all the rage, is what Pierce says. Yeah. And I think that's just, like, really where Pierce is going. Like, he really just wants to fit in and be so hard, like, young and hip, but he's not doing it with these graphic tees. Yeah. My favorite one is the man candy one.
So right after that, I think Jeff walks in. He's at the door with sunglasses on, his arms crossed, and he tells him, like, I'm not here to have fun, I'm here to study, and I'm here to bang the blonde, or something like that.
He says, like, I'm here just because I have the hots for Britta.
Yeah, and he pretends to be a douche, and then he's like, psych, and he talks about how that guy was a drag, and this is, like, a little taste, I guess you could say, of, like, Jeff's character growth.
Yeah, I mean, I said, like, wow, a lot of growth has happened in the last 12 episodes. Like, that's a really big change from the Jeff that we met.
Oh, yeah, at the pilot, definitely.
And I said, while Jeff is explaining, like, how he's changed and stuff, you can see Abed is the only other one in the frame, and Abed is kind of just making these, like, really interesting facial expressions. Yeah. And you can just see that he's calculating, what show does this relate to. He's like, what theme are we doing today? And I think that's just really awesome.
Yeah, and he tells Jeff, he's like, you're like Hawkeye on MASH, which I had never seen MASH before. Have you?
I've never seen.
Yeah,
MASH.
I haven't either. But I did some research into, like, who Hawkeye was.
Tell me what you learned.
Yeah, so Hawkeye was the lead character on MASH. MASH was set in the Korean War, and Hawkeye was a doctor who, like, worked, like, out, like, in the fields. He was a medic for the army.
I'm gonna be completely honest. I always assumed MASH was about someone they called MASH. Like,
seriously?
I mean, I just kind of assumed that.
I think it stands for something, but
it
I don't know
definitely
what it stands
for something.
But, so Hawkeye's the lead character on MASH. I read a description for Hawkeye as a character, and you tell me if this is this goes and fits with Jeff in this moment. It says, he makes the best of his life in an isolated army camp by indulging in heavy drinking, carousing, and pulling pranks on people around him.
Yeah, I mean, for this episode, I don't know about the pranks, but it's definitely.
I mean, I'd like to see some Jeff pranks,
like gym vibes.
But yeah, pretty good comparison from Abed, I think. And then I think right after this is when Buddy enters.
Buddy enters during the group hug.
Yeah, he enters during the group hug.
You can barely see him at like 55 seconds. If you pause the screen, you can see him like entering the group hug.
And I think his line is, "Don't go changing too much, Jeff. We kind of liked you how you were." And then Jeff, I love this. Jeff starts to respond as if he's just like someone in the study group, and then like halfway through he realizes like this dude came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He's like, "Did you teleport here?"
And this is definitely like something Dan Harmon clearly really likes to do. Like in Rick and Morty, there's a bunch of just like people
a lot of
entering
stuff like
the
that.
show. So then Buddy goes on to explain that, he's in the Spanish class. He's been there all along. And Pierce says, "I've never seen you before in my life." That's when everyone else admits that they've never seen him. And of course, Abed is the only one who's actually seen and noticed Buddy. He says, "I've seen Buddy before. He sits in the corner next to the dead plant." I think that's really awesome. And then you get this really wonderful montage of
flashbacks.
Just some like flashbacks that I guess, did we get to see any of those?
Yeah, no, all those happen in the first season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like they're things we've seen where they just have placed him like at the spot with him reacting to certain stuff.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious. And the last flashback involves Buddy's fantasy about Annie and Britta in like cheerleader costumes.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob, but I believe that we prepared
we do in fact have a clip,
bite.
So we'll roll that and we'll get right back into it.
Give me back my bra, Annie. I'm not even wearing a bra.
I don't even care who wins.
What?
All right, so welcome back, guys. That was just a clip from the show.
That was insane, and I know that's probably one of your fantasies, right?
I mean, how could it not be? They're both very attractive women.
After this, we have like Buddy explains himself. Well, first off, he admits that one might have been a dream, that might have not happened because he sleeps a lot in class, which is another reason they maybe wouldn't have actually noticed him. So eventually, like, Buddy is explaining that he knows that like a new member of the group would possibly throw off the rhythm and timing, and right as he is saying this, he gets cut off by the intro, which is the real intro that we didn't get in the pilot that came in episode 2. So great intro, by the way. It's one that like I don't really get annoyed of. Most intros I get annoyed of.
I kind of like I'm like on my phone or something, and then I start hearing it and I start like singing along with it. It's great.
Yeah, so he after the intro is over, he comes back and he's like mid-sentence and he's like, "Look, just tell me the rules and I will like fit myself in. Like, don't even worry about it. Like, it'll be fine." And so the group kind of just lets it be because Jeff is like taking a step back or he's trying to take a step back. He's trying to just, sit back, have fun, and crack wise.
Yeah, crack wise.
Let's crack some fucking wise.
So the next scene, we cut to the newsroom for the Greendale Gazette Journal, where Jeff walks in and he says, "I received a text about free Sephora samples."
Dude, did you see the dean behind the chalkboard?
No, I did not see the dean.
I tried.
The dean pops out of nowhere.
Like,
he's just behind this chalkboard. He hops out and he like touches Jeff on the abs.
He says, "Sorry about the ruse, but I have something better for you than exfoliating soap to rub on you," as he proceeds to just rub Jeff's abs.
Yeah, just a little bit of their sexual tension that appears throughout the show. Well, one-sided sexual tension.
Yeah, so as Jake said, we are in the Greendale Gazette Journal Mirror office, I suppose, and the dean is trying to resurrect this thing, and he needs a student editor. I believe he said someone with like a good understanding of life or something, like an interesting perspective. Obviously, Jeff is a primary candidate. So he offers Jeff an office and an English credit. So, these are both things that he wants. And I love that kind of immediately Abed starts to set up that martini maker just to make it more like MASH.
He's dealing with some kind of chemistry set. But Jeff is like trying to make the decision. And he's like, "Oh, I don't know." And then he sees this great office, and he just can't help himself.
The line, he says, first desk I've seen in 6 months that doesn't have Zeppelin rules carved into it. I thought that was a really great, glimpse at who goes to Greendale and how old the furniture is at Greendale.
Yeah. So Jeff takes on this role. He starts assigning some of his reporters and journalists to go do stuff. And
Find me the best pizza, man.
yeah, he just asks. He makes one of them go get pizza for him, the other go get beer for him to see if they sell underage to this girl. And
That's great. And he's drinking the beer throughout the episode.
Yeah,
it's
he's
awesome.
just drinking beer and eating pizza throughout the episode.
Very Hawkeye.
And Annie, of course, is not okay with this until Jeff decides to make her his ace news hound.
But before this, he asks her, that you're talking like a reporter, Annie. Are you a reporter? And she says, no, because I'm a girl, they make me edit the crosswords. But then she admits that she also just really likes crosswords.
So Annie kind of confronts him, and then we go to the next scene, which is in
Spanish 102.
Yeah, Senor Chang's classroom, and we find out that we're told that Chang has died.
Guys, I'm gonna take a moment of silence if you would join me for Chang, because guys, if you've seen the last few episodes, you understand Chang was a brilliant man, and his legacy will live on forever.
Some might say a genius.
A genius. So we're gonna take a brief moment of silence.
Okay, so that was pretty good. We find out that Chang drove his moped into the side of an Arby's.
And the substitute teacher, she says, we should take comfort in the fact that he didn't suffer when his moped hit the side of that Arby's. So, at least he didn't suffer.
Yeah. And then, boom, Chang busts in.
Holy shit, he's not dead?
Yeah, he has a boombox. He's walking with sunglasses looking like a fly motherfucker that he is. And he tells him he can't die. He is immortal. He is Chang, and he will not be stopped.
He cannot be killed.
Yeah, and so...
And he also says that substitute teacher is a professional actress that he hired to do this whole thing.
Insane, but
he also has an obituary, or what's that called?
An obituary?
Yeah, he has an obituary, on the desk, and it's a really brilliant photo of him.
He went through a lot of effort for this. Yeah, so then he plays this song on his boombox, which we're going to play for you right now.
I am seeing your child, and I'm so ill. This is a warning, I can't be killed. All in your cabeza, without a chaser. Not another teacher with this much flavor. Saw that coming.
Okay, so we are back with you guys. And I just have to say, first off, that song is a fucking banger. I would like a full version of it on Spotify.
Yeah, I would like a full version. I imagine he had them make a bit longer of a song if he went through all this effort.
I mean, there's no way he just had that.
I like to think there's a really catchy hook that we don't get to hear, and it's maybe sung by a Marion.
Give us a taste of that catchy hook
that can't happen.
No, you don't have any ideas.
Not right now.
Okay, maybe next time.
If you pay for the OnlyFans, you can catch our version of the full song.
Yeah. So we see Chang walk out, and then Buddy says, "I'll see you guys in Spanish class or in study group." As he walks out and hits the door, which is hilarious. Next,
we go to the hallway. Jeff is walking down the hallway.
Oh, wait, before we get to that, sorry to cut you off.
No, go for it.
Shirley has a funny line that I think is worth saying. She says, can he really just decide to be one of us? Which I think is interesting and kind of speaks to this air of exclusivity and pretentiousness these people have.
Yeah, I have something later on when Buddy is yelling at the group and he mentions you guys think you're so cool. Is that is this the first episode where we're kind of seeing other people's opinions?
It's one of the first where we see other people's reaction to this study group, because
the study group becomes quite infamous.
Yeah, they become
Greendale.
The group of people on Greendale. So yeah, so then
we go to the hallway and Jeff is confronted by Annie the Ace.
Yes.
And apparently in October there was a free Tony Braxton concert on the quad. Jeff remembers. I'm thinking he didn't have a good time. That or he's not much of a Tony Braxton fan. Either way. The show time was actually moved by an hour or two.
Yeah.
And instead of informing the whole school, whoever informed people of this change only sent the text to black students.
And one French kid named LeBron.
Which, I mean, he goes in.
Yeah, so
It's 2010, guys.
Yeah, so we cut to the next scene. We're in the dean's office.
Could you imagine being that one French kid?
Yeah,
LeBron?
LeBron. Is LeBron a French name? Like,
I really don't think
I hope it is. I really hope it is.
I mean, honestly, it might be.
It could be. I have no idea. But yeah, so we cut to the dean. He's in his office putting away a Dalmatian costume.
He's a furry.
Yeah, he's low-key a furry. He fucks around with them Dalmatians. But yeah, so the dean's putting away his costume, and that's when Annie calls and confronts him. Now, we can't hear Annie, but I mean, we can assume she's just like asking questions, like did you do this?
Yeah.
And the dean kind of he denies it, and he changes his voice, I guess, good enough to where Annie couldn't tell that it was him.
You know, she's Annie.
Yeah, and so next we're in the study room,
and we get a fucking fantastic song from Jack
Yeah.
Black, equally educational and perverted at the same time.
Yes.
Do we have that
Yeah,
song?
we well, so let me set this up first. Buddy's there. He's thanking them for letting him in the study group. He makes his first joke where he says conjugal visit, and no one laughs. So now we're gonna cut to his next attempt at a joke. Here it is.
So for the essay portion,
And I got an essay portion, and I'm gonna move her luscious fanny all day long.
Hey, buddy can sing, you guys. That's great. And he's pretty young. We try not to sexualize her.
All right, we are back with you guys.
After that beautiful song.
Such a good song. I mean, dude, like, how do you just come up with that on the spot?
Did he come up with that on the spot?
No, but Buddy did in the show.
That's true.
And he got an essay portion.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you give us a little rendition of the song?
And he gonna move her luscious fanny all day long.
Damn, 6 pipes.
Thank you.
Dude.
I've been practicing that literally for hours in the mirror.
Have you?
No. So we get our first we get the infamous line, Annie's young, we try not to sexualize
Which
her.
is a complete lie.
Which you will find that comment on any post that has Allison Brie or is community related. It's always in the comments, and I see it on Reddit. I see it everywhere, and every time I see it, it pisses me off because no one is an original joke, and every time it has like 1,000 likes, and it just bothers me so much. I'm so tired of seeing it.
No, let it out, Jake. Let it out.
But look, it's a great quote. Obviously, it's hilarious, but also they do try to sexualize her in the show
a lot,
completely. So like, it's kind of funny. It's meta, I guess. So
on to some less controversial topics. I think Buddy offers up some really awesome suggestions on how to if they're in. He understands they've got a good vibe going. You know, they're a unit, but he is interested in improving the group, and he's got a few suggestions. So he suggests that they start saying "you go girl," but not in a way that, you know, oh, I'm so cool saying "you go girl," but in a way where we're kind of like winking at it, you know. And honestly, I think
like
that's
that.
a great idea.
I think it's genius. Abed liked it as well.
Yeah, he would have my vote on it. Secondly, he states that, you know, they need someone like him.
Yeah.
He compares himself to Paul Blart, Mall Cop. He's like, have you ever seen that, guys? Have you ever seen that movie? Like, that's me. You know, I'm fat and physical.
Yeah, he's a chubby,
fat
agile guy.
and physical. F and P all day.
Exactly. And then he gets up and kicks Jeff in the face.
He kicks the shit out of him.
And after Jeff gets kicked in the face, you can see him kind of coming back to his senses, and he's getting mad, and he's like, okay.
There's multiple points in this episode where you get like little flashes of like the old Jeff.
Yeah, and so
and
Jeff...
it's kind of just hinting at, you know, the ending. So following this, we actually go to the group having a somewhat of a secret study group meeting.
Yeah, in some storage room or something.
Yeah. There's just an absurd amount of empty rooms at Greendale.
Yeah, apparently. That are underutilized, even though the school doesn't have that much money, which is odd.
It's a mysterious place. It's magical, dare I say. So here, I'm trying to keep count of all the ironic T-shirts that Pierce is wearing. I actually forgot one. So he starts off wearing the World's Greatest Grandpa shirt. He eventually wears some shirt with like an arrow, and I think it says like "My face is up here." And one can assume that it's also pointing towards his penis.
Yeah.
So that's number 2, and then finally we get a look at his third ironic T-shirt, which is all the rage, all of the rage. and he's wearing a shirt that says "Retired Old Fart." So I think that's really interesting, and they're discussing whether or not what are they gonna do about Buddy? He can't stay.
I mean, they're just gonna start adding people to the group now.
Can't happen.
Shirley wants to add Gary.
Fuck
which
Gary.
Everyone hates Gary.
Look, Gary is so annoying.
And we get a hilarious line from Shirley where she says, like, defending herself, she said, "He grew up in a land with no sun."
He's from Finland. Give the kid a break. Look, all I'm saying is everyone knows a Gary.
So Jeff, after reading a newspaper, trying to stay out of it, he finally butts in and says, "Let's just do a vote." And so they.
But
take
you forgot what causes this. What causes them to take a vote?
Oh, yeah.
Pierce says, "I've given it a lot of thought, and frankly, I like his in-your-face style, and he wants to keep Buddy in the group." And I think this is super Pierce. Is this also a pun? It's like in-your-face style, because it kind of pans to Jeff a little bit, and he's like, rolling his eyes.
Yeah, I guess.
So they take a vote, and my favorite line is they're deciding how they're gonna vote, and they're like, "Oh, we should close our eyes," or like, "We should just say it."
Yeah.
And then Shirley says, "We'll know each other's voices," and Pierce says, "Troy's got a point." Just excellent.
I
humor.
never noticed that before.
A terrible joke, but
terrible.
Just great. And so then, well, actually, I think before that, Jeff mentioned some like murderous driver's ed instructor in Seattle, which is actually where Joel McHale is from. He's from Seattle. Yeah,
so everyone but Jeff actually votes to keep Buddy out, which was interesting. And then next scene, we cut to Jeff's new office.
The Dean and Annie. Oh, or is it Abed and Jeff?
Then it goes to Jeff's new office where Abed is doing some kind of chemistry and Jeff is laying down, drinking beer, eating pizza, and then right outside the door is where Annie and the Dean, Annie is confronting the Dean about.
So she confronts him about this whole scandal, and the Dean admits to it. He says, "Look, racial profiling might not be right, but it can be economical." Look, the Dean is a businessman. As we find out, this job is everything to him. He says this in his episode. He can't lose this job.
I thought it was interesting how he said, racial profiling may not be right. Like, as if like there's some room for debate there. Like, why didn't he just say racial profiling isn't right, but it might be economical? Like, the way he says may not that's pretty fucked.
But yeah, if he loses his job, guys, he's just another bald furry, and I mean, the world's got too many of those as it is. So
the Dean begs Jeff to stop Annie, and Jeff is in
you
this
know what
moment,
I said before this? Sorry to cut you off again. But Alison Brie does a really great job at like getting into these little roles that she's giving in the episodes, because she's always like kind of she's kind of like I feel like the younger characters like Troy and Abed and Annie, they really like emphasize their like childness, and so Annie is like constantly given these like little like roles, and she loves she's like a little kid roles. She's like playing make believe, and it's awesome. I think she gets so into it, so Definitely. It's really a good job on Alison Brie's part.
And Jeff is wearing the sick Hawaiian shirt.
It's sick. Look, he is Hawkeye now, okay?
And the Dean walks away, and we get Abed singing the MASH theme song, which was funny. And the next scene is the hall outside of the study room, where Jeff is talking to Annie. They're walking towards the study room. Jeff's trying to convince Annie to stop, and she does not want to. She wants to run this story because it'll help her get journalism scholarships. And then they walk into the room, and they walk in on Buddy.
Before we get into the Buddy thing, could we go back a little, just like a quick sec?
Yeah.
We missed, I think, the Dean talking to Jeff about like how he should convince Annie to not publish the story, and I think just something funny I had to mention was he says he's not racist because his best friend when he was 6 was a black man, and I thought that was just like
I so want many to know thoughts, more about that.
So like, many please. Thoughts, like oh my gosh,
what the fuck has gone on in this man's life. And
I also wrote down, like this, like. And Buddy, like, the universe just will not allow Jeff to just chill and crack wise. That's all
he just wants to crack wise,
He just wants to crack wise. Jake, when, like, I know you've been upset before because someone's preventing you from cracking wise,
Dude,
right?
I'm always trying to crack wise, and some people won't let me
Look, you guys may not know, but Jake loves a good crack of wise.
That's for sure.
Okay, so cut back to the
back
study
to
room.
the study room. Buddy.
And Buddy is here.
He is playing an apology song. Joe, do you know how that song goes?
I have no clue, but it's just like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's pretty great, and he's playing it on an acoustic guitar. And so
we actually get him to say like, "Oh, you guys just missed my apology song," and Britta's like, "Yeah, I'll tell them about it later. They do not want to hear this apology song again, guys."
So Jeff is like confused why Buddy is still there, and he's like, "I guess we just assumed you would tell him that he was out." Like Jeff is like has to do everything for this group. It's like
he's the leader.
Yeah, it's like they're his children. It's kind of sweet. So then Jeff tells Buddy that he's out. And this is where we get Buddy is being pulled out by Jeff, and he jumps on the table, and he's kicking and screaming, and Jeff pulls on him, like pulls him out. And so it turns out when they were recording the scene, when Jeff, who's played by Joel McHale, pulls Buddy off of the table, in real life when they were shooting it, he accidentally pulled out a large chunk of Jack Black's pubic hair.
That is disgusting.
Which I'm sure they had to pick out of the table.
Dude, you know Jack Black's got a
He
bush.
has a fucking garden. So Jeff drags him out of the room while he's kicking and screaming. It's hard to watch, it's really sad. And everyone is so uncomfortable with what's happening. And Jeff comes in so flustered. Does anyone have an issue with how I just handled that?
No one has an issue. Pierce just wants those lemon squares that Buddy made for him, and I think this is where we get t-shirt number 4, ironic t-shirt number 4, and we can see Pierce just covered in powdered sugar with a shirt that says "Man Candy." I just really can't imagine Chevy Chase being like too thrilled about these things that they put him through.
No, definitely not.
It definitely made like one of the greatest characters, and honestly, like, guys, Pierce, like, not in this episode so much, but Pierce is kind of a villain, and in my opinion, he's a fantastic
He plays a great villain.
Yeah, and then another thing I had written down is, like, Buddy kind of, like, goes on a rant about the group before he's dragged out kicking and screaming, and, he says, like, you guys think you're so cool, so is this, like, the first time that they confront them, they're confronted about being hot shit, right?
Yeah, this is one of the first times that, like, someone outside of their group makes, like, a comment about, like, how the group, like, handles themselves, carries themselves, and how they act around campus and how it affects other people.
This? We might have. Oh, well, you just got a refresher course that they are a popular group, and, they're starting to get noticed.
Yeah, exactly. But, so we cut back to Jeff's office. Jeff has now realized that he's the same guy, and he's, like, lamenting to Abed. And Abed tells him pretty much that, like, Jeff, he doesn't have to be a different guy. He just needs to be a leader. And that's a pretty nice moment. And it I think it kind of speaks to his character growth. Like, Jeff doesn't need to change who he is. He just needs to, like, be who he is, but also be a leader for the group, Like,
for sure.
He can't give up those responsibilities. He is already the leader.
Yeah, Abed says, in his MASH reference that, Hawkeye didn't just bed nurses and, drink. He had to yell when the choppers landed. He had to give orders. And, he says, like, people would have died if he didn't do his job. And it's kind of the same thing, I don't think it's a coincidence that when Jeff comes back with this new attitude and new take on life, that someone literally tries to infiltrate their group. It's kind of like just a physical manifestation of, like, this is what's going to happen if you, like, act this way. It's kind of, dare I say, like, dark timeline type stuff.
We don't.
We don't want to get on. We don't want to get on that, guys.
We're in the dark timeline right now.
Honestly, we are.
But we get. So after Jeff and Abed are talking, Annie walks in, and she, like, apologizes to Jeff, and she actually thanks him for getting mad at her.
Yeah.
Which was definitely interesting. It speaks kind of, like, his dynamic and their dynamic and, like, his role as this leader who, like, kind of has to tell them what to do, or else, like, the group doesn't, like, they have trouble. And
And this is what Jeff gets out of this. He asks Abed, he's like, what do I get for being this leader? And he gets moments like this where, he really helped these people. As we said in the last episode, Jeff is really this like beacon of light inside of Greendale, where there's so many lost people here, guys. You have someone walking around whose entire identity is saying pop, pop.
Pop, pop.
Shout out Magnitude, the real homie. But yeah, he gets these things, and it's great.
Yeah, so now we get to the final scene where the group walks into the study room to find Buddy sitting there. And
Pierce has on no ironic t-shirt.
He's before they walk in, they're all there except for Jeff, and they're kind of talking about, like, what do we do? And so Pierce comes up with this idea, and he tells Annie, he says, Annie, you flash your breast as a decoy for the bum rush.
Annie's reaction is so great. She is so just like, dude, we've known each other for this long, and you're still making these comments?
Yeah, I mean, she's literally 18, and he's like 65. It is.
And then he tells Britta, oh, I didn't think to use you because your boobs are so old. It's terrible.
Yeah, so then we come to find out that Jeff actually invited Buddy back to the study group because, as he says, how can I exclude someone for something I'm so lucky to have?
A fantastic line.
Yeah, really sweet. But then, right after that, Owen Wilson and his little gang pop in, and they tell Buddy that he actually made it into their group. And Buddy, without even thinking about it, he's up and pretty much he's out. We find out that they were actually
his first choice, and the study group
was their
is
second choice. So it's kind of a little humbling for Jeff and the gang, realizing that like they're not really as cool as they think they are.
They kind of even like miss him after he goes.
Yeah,
Annie says it would have been nice to have a new person, and then Shirley fucking just has to bring up Gary again.
Oh my
let me
God.
go call Gary.
Fucking hate Gary.
Shut up about Gary.
So we end with a little freeze frame, and the MASH theme plays, and so the post credits scene. You can talk about that.
Yeah, so
pretty much
the post-credit scene is like we didn't mention who is a part of this other study group. It's Owen Wilson, who doesn't get a character name. He's just on the script as other study group leader. Starburns, and then some girl who I'm not really sure who she is. And so Troy and Abed are interviewing with Starburns for a position inside of the other study group. They're trying to advertise themselves as a twosome, and he doesn't really see how that's sellable.
Yeah, and we have a little clip from that. Here you guys go. And there was a little taste of the famous Troy and Abed La Biblioteca rap, which
so if you
shows
don't
up
know,
first in I think maybe the third episode in a post-credit scene.
Yeah, probably. If you don't know like what's happening here fully, Starburns is basically like making them do this rap because he kind of sees it as like the only like interesting quality that they have to offer.
Yeah.
So I think that's fantastic. And then as they finish the rap and as Starburns finishes telling them, the group will talk it over, Pierce walks in and he's like, "You traitors! Like, you're playing for the other team." And come to find out, Pierce also wants in to the alternative study group. He actually sent in a videotape, and he says that look, if they didn't like it, like, he doesn't pop on tape, so he wants to sing a song. So he sings a song about Britta getting rid of Britta.
I'm getting rid of the B.
She's a GDB,
which is a brilliant song from earlier in the season.
Honestly, a great song.
Yeah, so that's the end of the episode. So
yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. But before we get out of here, it is time for Jake to go on trial and defend why he chose this episode. So go ahead and give us your defense.
Pretty much, I chose this episode, one, because it's a really good midpoint in the season. I think them coming back right after winter break is a good point to jump back right into it. Also, I mean, the main reason I chose this episode is because we see Jeff kind of struggle with his identity a little bit and who he wants to be. He doesn't want to be this like guy who's only interested in like having sex with Britta or just studying and getting through. He's realized that he really likes these people and he wants to like have fun with him and like make the most of his time while he's at Greendale. And so Jeff tries to like alter his personality because of that. And this is where we get a bit of character growth and development, where throughout the episode, Jeff's trying to like change for the better, at least so he thinks, but that ends up causing more issues than if he had just been who he normally is. So by the end of the episode, Jeff realizes that he doesn't need to change who he is. He is really fine as who he was. He just needs to be the leader of this group because this group of people really needs a leader. And so I thought it was kind of nice how, like, while Jeff has grown, he's still the same person, and he doesn't need to be anyone else, you know? So that's pretty much why I chose this episode. I also think
Black.
Yeah, I also think Jack Black is hilarious in the show. I think it would be great if he had had more like guest appearances in the show, because I think he actually has pretty good chemistry with the rest of the group. I think he's hilarious. But yeah, that's pretty much why I chose this episode.
I think that's a great defense, Jake, and I think certainly like there's a lot of character development with everyone, honestly.
Yeah.
Maybe except for like Troy. We don't get much for him this episode. But another thing I wanted to talk to you about really quickly was just like, I mean, it's kind of like just a really integral part of the show, especially by this point. But just like how Abed kind of like it's kind of like he's the set designer or like stuff like that. Like he just kind of like I liked when Buddy said that Jeff was a puppet master and these were little puppets, and I kind of thought Abed's not a puppet master, but he's just kind of like this watching figure that he's understands everything.
He helps like set the scene, like he helps people understand, like kind of.
He honestly really is a director.
Yeah, he kind of like directs everyone, and like he even sometimes like gives people lines.
Yeah,
like which
great.
is hilarious.
Yeah, so that's all for this episode. This was Investigative Journalism, and next week, when we cover Community again, we'll be covering the episode American Poultry, which I think is episode...
I'm not sure what episode it is.
We're not sure, but we'll put it out there.
Yeah, so make sure to also check out our episode about the How I Met Your Mother pilot. We'll have more episodes for that.
Check it out.
Yeah, and also we are now on not only Spotify, but also Apple Music, and we will be on YouTube soon. So check us out on all those platforms. Leave us a rating and review. It'd be great. And thank you for listening.
A quick thing about the Spotify is we are unable to currently like show up when you search a show about a show. So if you go ahead and type in Jake Sykes, JakeSykes, it'll come up
it's
a
easy
lot
to find
easier.
The show that way.
And if you're listening to it on Apple Podcasts, we have a link in our Instagram bio, which is a show about a show pod, no spaces on Instagram. You can go ahead and access it through that. That's going to be the easiest way.
Yeah. So this has been a show about a show. I'm Jake.
I'm Joe.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.